In this tutorial, we're going to use InDesign CC 2020 to go through Classroom in a Book Chapter 13, which is all about printing and exporting and packaging files. For this one, we are not going to cover a lot of the information in the chapter page by page. A lot of this is really important for you to be able to turn in an assignment, which is why we're doing it as one of the very first things we do. I want you to get to see kind of what am I looking for when I am looking at your assignments. So let's go ahead and take a peek at InDesign. Let's go File and Open. And let's go ahead and go to Lesson 13 and grab that Start file. I'm going to say Open. Now when you do this, you're going to probably get some type of message saying, do you want us to update the links or not? Normally you want to say yes. For this assignment, we're going to say no, so I can show you how to go through and fix it if something is wrong. So I'm going to say don't update the links. Alright, so I'm not updating the links. I do want you to go ahead and go to Window and come down to Workspace, and we're going to use printing and proofing this time. Normally we work in Essentials, but I do want you to kind of get in the habit of looking at something a little bit different. Alright, so if you open it up, it looks really bad, and you're probably going, oh, what did I do wrong? I know this is beautiful. Go up to View, come down to Display Performance, and go to High Quality. And that will go ahead and clean up a lot of those issues so you can make sure that you are exactly where you want to be. Alright, so now if I look down at the bottom, I go to my pre-flight, I've got 3 different errors in this assignment. So let's go ahead and take a peek to see what are those errors. If I go up here, I can see my pre-flight. It's going to tell me I have 2 link errors and I have 1 text error. So if I go to the down menu, let's go ahead and click on Missing Link. So it's telling me that Garden News Masthead Spring is missing, and if I go down to the bottom for information, I went ahead and expanded mine, so you might need to make it bigger or smaller. It says it'll give you the problem, the link is missing, the links panel, use relink to find the linked file. So it's telling you right here what the problem is. So if I click on page 1, it's going to take me exactly to where that problem is. So I can tell right here with this question mark that this is where my problem is. So I'm going to go ahead, it says to go to my links panel, so I'm going to go here to my links panel, and if I scroll down I can see this is the one that's got a problem. So I go down here to relink, and it's going to say, okay, where is this image? Because think of it as a kind of a dot to dot, and you're telling it to go to one folder, but that folder doesn't have it anymore. So we're going to go here into links, and we want to make sure we go find that Garden News Mastheads, grab the same one. So we want spring. No, it doesn't have spring, it has summer. Let's go ahead and open that one. So now we've got that one in there instead, so we've gone ahead and fixed it. Now if we go through, we see we've got one other issue right here on page 8. So page 8 says this one has been changed, but we didn't update it, so we can go simply as easy as double clicking and it will update that link for us. So we want to make sure when you're turning things in that you have 0 errors. So I still have 1 error. So let's go ahead, take a peek at my pre-flight panel and see what is that error. It says I have overset text in this text frame. So let's go ahead and go to page 3. And you see right here I've got that plus sign. That plus sign is telling me that we have a problem, that there's more text than is showing. So I either need to go in and make my text frame a little bit bigger, I need to edit it, I need to do something in order to get that to not have any errors at all. So now I'm back in my pre-flight, I'm happy with it, everything is fixed. So now I want to look at the links. This is something that I do when we are looking at our assignments. So I want you to go ahead and go to the links panel. I want you to go to the flyout menu, the hamburger menu, and go to link options. And what I want to be able to do is see size and shape and say OK. So it should pop up another one. Okay, it's not. Panel options. Let's try panel options. Let's go ahead and show actual PPI, effective PPI. You can show dimensions too if you want and say OK. So what this is telling me right now is what every single one of those images in this document is. So for this one, this lily pad garden on page 1, I can tell that it is a small resolution, that it's 72, and we want to shoot for 300. But I also know that the effective PPI is 127. So I know that they have stretched it a pretty good amount. We want it to basically be about the same. So how would I fix this? I would go to a right click. I would go to Edit With and go to Photoshop. So if I want to make sure that they're all 300 or so, it's going to pop this one open. So I know that we're using this image as an 8.5 by 11. So go ahead and take a peek at what we're looking at. So we want to make sure before you turn anything in, especially for print, especially as you're working on your publications, that you have these all at 300. 300 is what we want to use for print. If you're designing something for the web, 72 is just fine. 300 is kind of an old school number, but it's pretty even, pretty easy way to go. So let's take a peek at what we've got as far as our water lily image goes. We're in Photoshop. Let's go to Image. Let's come down here to Image Size. So I can tell that this width is 16 inches by 20. So it's actually pretty big. I'm going to go ahead and take that width down to 8.5, but that takes my height down to 10.75. So it's really a little bit too small for my cover. So let's go ahead and take it to 11 and that resolution up to 300. So it's going to go ahead, I want that resample 2.0 on and say OK. And it's going to go ahead and resize that image for us so it's closer to what we are going to be using it as. When we're happy with it, we're going to go ahead and close it, push save. So now when I go into InDesign, I can see that that lily garden is now 300 DPI, that the effective PPI is 292, which is pretty close, almost exactly what I want it to be. So you want to make sure that you go through and look at those elements before you're going to go ahead and package. So first thing you're going to do is look for errors. Second thing you're going to do is double check the DPI on all your images. So for some people, sometimes this RGB and CMYK will actually fight with each other. For the purposes of this project, we're not going to worry about it a whole lot, but it is a place where you can see that element. So let's go ahead and say, okay, I'm ready to turn this in. Let's do a file, save as. We're going to do first initial, last name, underscore InDesign, classroom in a book, chapter 13. So that's going to name this element itself. This is going to name what's in our package, what we have created. So now we have to actually figure out how to turn it in, because a document itself is actually made up of lots of fonts, lots of images. They don't live in your screen. They don't live in this assignment, in this package, in this file. There we go. So you need to make sure that when you're turning things in, you're giving them all to me. You're uploading the whole thing to Canvas. So how do we do that? We package it. We go File, and we come down to Package. And Package is basically telling it to go through and gather up every single thing that is creating this image to this file to make it so I can pass this off to someone else. So it can be if you're changing computers, maybe you're using a computer in a lab one day, you're using your home computer another, you need to package in between those because not all systems have exactly the same things on them. So what this is telling me is we're looking at the entire publication. It's telling me it uses 4 fonts, that none are missing, none are embedded, none are incomplete, and none are protected. If you have protected fonts, it's a really good chance that this will not package or will not create the PDFs. So it's usually just easier to go and find a different typeface in that case. It tells me we've got 19 different links. You can go through and it's going to go through one at a time and tell you every single little bit about what we need. So now I'm going to go ahead and say package. And what it's going to do is say, okay, where do you want to put it? So I'm going to go ahead and go to lesson 13. I'm going to write my first initial, last name, chapter 13. And instead of folder, I'm going to put PKG. So I know this is the one that is packaged. It's really important to keep track of this because this is the one that you need to be able to zip to turn in. Alright, so I do want it to copy the fonts, I do want it to copy the links, I do want it to give me the update options. I'm not worried about hyphenation or non-printing. I do want IDML, I do want a PDF, and I do want it to be a high quality PDF. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to package. So make sure you're paying attention to where you tell this to go, because if you don't, it's going to make the next step really hard. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and go out to my folder where I've got my tutorials. So I've got a folder for lesson 13. Now you see in my lesson 13 I've got this one called Oser InDesign Classroom and Book with the PKG. Now if I look in that PKG, I should have a file that says fonts, which is including a file all my fonts. I should have one that says links, which should be a copy of every single link that I have in this image, in this file. I should have one that says IDML, which means I can open this on older versions of InDesign. Sometimes you'll find that someone has done an update and you haven't, and you can't necessarily open it, so you have to open the IDML instead. You should have an INDD, which is your InDesign file, and you should have a PDF. So when you're actually going to turn things in, I want you to go back to this package folder. I want you to do a right click, a send to compressed folder. That's how you do it on a PC. On a Mac, it's a little bit different. I think you want to do compress on that one instead. Alright, so now I have this folder called PKG that's zipped. You have to turn in a zipped folder to Canvas for all of the InDesign files. Otherwise, they will come in broken and I'll have to give you a 0, so you don't want that to happen. Make sure you're going to upload this packaged file. Now, as these start to get bigger and bigger, it's going to take more time to submit these to Canvas. So make sure you give yourself enough time. Don't wait until the very last minute. So packaging is an area where people have problems every single time, and it's got to be one of the very first things you learn, otherwise you can't turn assignments in. If you have any questions, you can always Google it, you can always let me know, but you've got to be able to package. So that's all you need to do and turn in for Chapter 13.